All right, let's jump right in. For decades, we've had this one big metaphor for how our minds work. It's a really powerful idea, but what if it's actually been holding us back? What we're going to look at today is a totally new way of thinking called the Brain Kinematics Model. It basically throws out the old rulebook and gives us a new physics for your mind. You've heard this a million times, right? Your brain processes information. It runs algorithms, it stores memories like they're files on a hard drive. It's the ultimate supercomputer. This whole idea of ones and zeros, of symbolic computation, it's just dominated how we think about thinking. But this new model asks us to imagine something completely different and honestly a lot weirder. You heard that right. Not a machine with rigid logic gates, but jelly, a squishy, viscoelastic, physical thing. Imagine dropping a little pebble into a bowl of layered jello. You'd see waves spread out, right? They'd interact, bounce off each other, get absorbed. Well, the Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM for short, says that every single thought, every feeling, every dream is a physical event. It's a wave of energy moving through the literal physical landscape of your brain. So, let's really get into this first big idea. The BKM just reframes everything. It pulls us away from these abstract concepts of computation and drops us smack dab into the world of physical force and energy. Okay, the one word you have to get here is strain. In this model, strain is literally the currency of the mind. And I want to be clear, this isn't a metaphor for stress. We're talking about a real physical force. Every sight, every sound, every memory you pull up injects a wave of this strain into your brain tissue. Thinking, well, that's just the process of this energy flowing around, calming down, and finding a new balance. This chart just lays out the whole paradigm shift perfectly. We're going from the world of symbolic computation, abstract ones and zeros, to the messy, real-world physics of strain flow dynamics. Your brain isn't running software. It's a physical landscape where energy is constantly moving and settling. It's a huge change in perspective. So how does the strain even move? The model breaks it down into two main forces. The best way to think about it is like geology. You've got horizontal flow, which is kind of like tectonic plates sliding across the surface of your brain, connecting different areas, integrating all kinds of information. And then you have vertical flow. This is like a hot plume of lava coming up from the Earth's mantle, bringing that raw sensory data and deep emotional energy up from your limbic system to the cortex. Okay, so we've got these forces, but what does that actually feel like? How do these physical horizontal and vertical flows come together to create, our actual experience of the world, from a simple sound to a really complex idea? This is so cool. It basically maps out the life of a thought. It all starts with a sensation. That's a sharp vertical burst of strain from something you see or hear. Next up is perception. That's when the horizontal flows kick in, spreading that energy out to see if it matches any existing memory patterns. Now, if that energy is just too much, if it overwhelms the system, it floods the limbic system, and bam, that's feeling. And finally, when the horizontal and vertical systems find a nice, stable looping pattern, that's cognition. That's structured thought. So here's the kicker. Every single mental state we have has its own unique physical signature. When you're just sensing the world, vertical flow is totally dominant. When you're having a big emotion, your limbic system is literally overflowing with strain. And check out intuition. It's described as this broad, searching horizontal flow that suddenly gets hit with a sharp vertical spike that locks it into place. That's a physical aha moment. It's wild. All right, now for one of the most mind-blowing parts of this model, sleep. What in the world is actually happening when we dream? Well, the BKM has a purely mechanical answer for what your brain is doing on its mysterious night shift. Think about your average day. It's just a constant stream of interactions, little thoughts, big feelings. Your brain can't possibly process all of that energy as it happens. So where does all that leftover stuff go? It doesn't just poof, disappear. According to this model, all those leftovers stick around. They become these little pockets of actual physical tension, what the BKM calls residual strain. They're like these little bubbles of unresolved energy, just sitting there in the jelly of your brain, waiting to be dealt with. Which brings us to the million-dollar question. If our brains are just collecting all this physical gunk all day long, how do they possibly clean house? How does the whole system get back to zero for the next day? And the answer is
dreams. The BKM says that dreaming isn't really a psychological thing first. It's a mechanical thing. It's the physical process of all those little strain bubbles rising up, bumping into each other, merging, and popping to release their stored energy. The bizarre stories our dreams tell us, that's just what it feels like from the inside while this physical rebalancing is happening.
Now, this physical way of looking at things gets incredibly powerful when you start to apply it to mental health. The BKM lets us reframe disorders not just as, say, chemical imbalances, but as predictable physical patterns of how strain is flowing or not flowing.
I mean, just look at this mapping. Anxiety is basically a state of too much leftover residual strain, with all this emotional energy constantly bubbling up vertically. Depression, on the other hand, is like the whole system is stuck in molasses. Everything is damped down, the flows have collapsed. And PTSD? That's seen as these huge, uncontrolled vertical eruptions from the limbic system. Every condition has a distinct physical signature of imbalance.
So here's the hopeful part. If we can understand these conditions as physical imbalances, then it makes sense that we can think about recovery as a physical rebalancing act. This last part looks at how the BKM helps explain why different kinds of therapy actually work.
And this is where it all clicks into place, because the model gives a physical reason for the treatment. For depression, which is defined by collapsed flow, what's the strategy? Get flow started again with things like movement or light. For something like PTSD, therapies like EMDR can be understood as a way to physically remodel that trauma attractor in the brain's landscape, basically carving a new riverbed so that trapped energy can finally flow somewhere else. This quote just nails it. It perfectly captures the heart of the Brain Kinematics Model. It reframes our struggles not as some kind of personal or moral failing, but as a physical system that's just out of alignment. And the beautiful thing about a system that's misaligned is that it can be realigned. And that really leaves us with one last powerful question to think about. If we stop seeing the brain as this black box computer that we can't really fix and start seeing it as a physical, dynamic landscape, well, that gives us a whole new sense of agency, doesn't it? It suggests that with our actions, with therapy, even with how we sleep, we are all constantly physically reshaping our own minds.